Hi there, everybody. My name is Jerome Gabriel, and I'm a faculty member at the University of St. Francis, and I specialize in outdoor recreation. I've put together this video to talk just a little bit about some of the careers that are available in the field of outdoor recreation. You might have thought about being able to find a career that allows you to work outside, and what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about some of those that exist, and maybe share with you a few ideas of some careers that maybe you'd never really even thought about. So before we dive into all that, though, I do want to mention a couple things. So I introduced myself real briefly. Again, my name is Jerome Gabriel, and I am a faculty member at the University of St. Francis in Joliet, Illinois. However, before I started at the University of St. Francis, I have been working in the outdoor field a long time. So I started off as a guide in the Canadian Rockies. I got to guide people up mountains, down rivers, through forests, through caves, over cliffs, and it was a lot of fun. I got to see some of the most amazing places all over the world. After spending a few years doing that, I moved to Bowling Green, Ohio, and Bowling Green State University, where I became the outdoor program director for about a decade. So there I got to do a lot of the same things: whitewater rafting, canoeing, kayaking, rock climbing, caving, rappelling, and spent most of that time taking college students out on all those trips. Again, after doing that for about a decade, I moved on to the academic side, and since the fall of 2014, I've been at the University of St. Francis in Joliet, teaching outdoor recreation to the next generation of students who want to go out there and lead. A couple other things: I do some wilderness medicine instruction as well, and I'm going to showcase a lot of stories over that time. But the big thing I want to point out is that I didn't start doing any of this until I was 22 years old. So when I was in high school, I was trying to figure out what it is I wanted to do with my life, and I was pretty good at science, so that's what I decided. I decided to go to college as a biology major, and I spent 3 years in college as a biology major. A few months to go before graduation, and I realized this is not what I wanted to do with my life. The idea of sitting behind a computer screen for the next 40 hours a week for 40 years of my life didn't really appeal to me. But I realized growing up that I really did love being outside. So I graduated, got the degree in biology, and then started my adventure working in the outdoors. So that means that I was 22 years old before I even started thinking about working in this field. So for those of you watching this video, if you're not 22 yet, you already have a head start on where I'm at. I'm going to share some of those stories about my experiences, but again, just remember, I didn't start any of this until I was 22. So if you hear about something or think about something that maybe you would be interested in, this is a perfect time in life to choose to work in the outdoors as a career path. A couple of the pictures I got in here I'll just talk about real briefly, but hopefully you like the little National Geographic shot that we've got set up here. Well, it's not actually a National Geographic shot. That's me rappelling into a cave called Stevens Gap. It's in Scottsboro, Alabama, and this was my spring break trip about 3 weeks ago. So this is what I do with college students at the University of St. Francis to help teach them about working in the outdoor field. All right, so before we jump into all the careers that are available in outdoor recreation, I should probably mention exactly what I mean by working in outdoor recreation. So it's not just being outside. There are lots of careers that work outside that are really great, but outdoor recreation specifically is a career where we go outside and we interact with the natural environment. So it's not just being outdoors, but it's interacting with it. And really, this is a field that anyone can do. It doesn't matter your level of skill, ability, age, even experience. If you just like the outdoors and you like working with people, those are really the two big things that you need to be able to work in this field. So again, I'll share some stories about some of the people that I've met who work out in this field. And there's some pretty amazing people who are doing some really awesome things out there. And hopefully it might give you some ideas of things you can do in this field as well. All right, so real briefly, what can you do? Well, there's lots of stuff. So this is a list of just a few of the careers that exist in the outdoors. Probably a lot more than maybe what you thought about. And so I'm going to go through each of these individually, not spend a whole lot of time on them, but maybe tell a story or two as we go through. So to start off with, you can go into professional guiding. So that's the route I took. I was a professional guide in the Rockies for a few years. It was an awesome experience. I got to see some of the most beautiful places all over this country. And I got to wake up in my tent to see them. I can remember standing up on the top of a mountain in British Columbia, watching the sunrise over top of the mountain range, and then looking the opposite direction and seeing the shadow of the mountain that I was standing on cast into the clouds hundreds of miles away. It was one of the most awesome experiences I've ever had. And I got to have that because I was guiding, because I was taking people out on these experiences. Professional guides really work in one of two realms. They work in the experiential side or the educational side. So on the experiential side, we try to give people these opportunities to see places and do things that they never would have done before, whether that's mountaineering, whether that's whitewater rafting, or whether that's even just backpacking and hiking. Guiding is an awesome opportunity to get people outside. However, it also does require some dedication. You are often outside for a week or 2 weeks at a time. So sometimes people are a little uncomfortable with that, and they want to be a little bit closer to some amenities, and that's fine too. But professional guiding is one way to get into the outdoors. Another way to work in the outdoors is what's called interpretive guiding. So if you go back to the professional guiding, you can remember that part of it is experiential. The other part is educational. The educational side is what we call interpretive guiding. So maybe you were interested in becoming a teacher, but the idea of working inside of a classroom with four walls and fluorescent lighting didn't really appeal to you that much. Well, we do a lot of teaching as well. We just call it interpretive guiding. If you've ever gone to a state or a national park and you've seen somebody walking groups around, teaching them about the history of the area or the culture of the area or some really unique natural resource in that space, that's interpretive guiding. It's taking people into the outdoors, helping them experiencing it in a new way. And what you're doing is you're interpreting that experience for them. You're teaching them about, again, the history, the culture, the natural formations that are out there. So if you're interested in education, we do that too. Often this field can be referred to as outdoor education. Outdoor education differs a little bit. We'll get into that a bit more when we start talking about some of the educational instruction that happens, but interpretive guiding is a great field for anyone who's interested in working in the outdoors, but also really likes teaching, likes seeing people understand new things for the first time. So wilderness therapy is another unique field. It's an opportunity for people to be able to go outside. However, the reason why they go outside is very different. In wilderness therapy, you work with an organization that will often work with at-risk or substance-dependent youth. And the goal is to take them into these wilderness settings and to help them understand that there's an ability for them to be self-sufficient and self-reliant. Imagine a normal counseling session where somebody who has an addiction issue might sit down with a counselor. And that counselor talks with them about what support systems they have, or what strengths or weaknesses they have, how they could work together to overcome these issues using their support systems. And that's great. But what wilderness therapy does is takes that same youth and we'll put them in a group with maybe 6 or 7 other youth that are going through similar circumstances. And we'll go backpacking or rock climbing or whitewater rafting. Imagine whitewater rafting down the Colorado River, and you just get through some massive class 5 rapid. And then you pull off to the side of the river, and sitting there on the side of the river, you have that exact same conversation. What sort of support systems do you have? What are your strengths and weaknesses? But more importantly, let's look at the group. What sort of strengths and weaknesses does this group have? How did you come together to support each other to get through that big class 5 rapid? How did you support each other to overcome these challenges that you face together? And if you can do that here in the outdoors, do you think maybe you can do it in the real world too? Can you do it to help support each other to overcome these other addictions that you're facing? And so we do the same sort of counseling. So if you're interested in psychology or interested in counseling, we do all of that too. We just do it in the outdoors, and we call it wilderness therapy. There's a number of wilderness therapy agencies all over the country that offer these types of services, and it's a great opportunity if you're really interested in spending a lot of time outside, but you also want to help people. Another field where helping people is the focus is called adventure therapy. And adventure therapy is all about helping people with disabilities get the opportunity to do the same thing outdoors that everyone else does. So if you're somebody who is interested in physical therapy or occupational therapy, we do that too. We do it outside and we call it adventure therapy. Now, adventure therapy really focuses on the opportunity to get individuals who otherwise wouldn't have these experiences into the outdoors. So whether that is whitewater rafting, canoeing, kayaking, anything. The example in the picture here is rock climbing for an individual who's lost the use of their legs. I had a former student of mine, his name was Andrew, and Andrew was in a terrible accident. He was on a trip, he dove into some shallow water, ended up crushing one of the vertebrae in his spine, and he was paralyzed from the waist down. After a number of months of therapy, he was able to walk again, but it required a couple crutches for him to do so. So you would think for somebody like him who loved the outdoors, well, his career's probably over. But in fact, it wasn't. He was able to join up with an organization called Wilderness Inquiry up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And with that organization, he was able to go out and lead kayaking trips for individuals who had physical disabilities. So here's a guy who shows up walking with two crutches, obviously has some sort of physical disability himself, but when he sat down in a kayak, he was probably a much better kayaker than I could ever be. And he was there to inspire other people to say, look, your physical disability doesn't define you. And just because you have a disability doesn't mean you can't do some of these amazing things. Here at the University of St. Francis, we have an awesome partnership with someplace called the National Sports Center for the Disabled in Winter Park, Colorado. And this is an organization whose total mission is to get people with disabilities outside, whether that's skiing, rock climbing, horseback riding, hiking, just getting them all of these similar opportunities. A great organization and something that we partner with a lot. In fact, and I'm going to make a short plug here for University of St. Francis, starting this fall 2020, University of St. Francis is going to be offering the only adventure-based recreation therapy degree in the country. We're going to be training students specifically for these two fields, wilderness therapy and adventure therapy, by teaching them all the skills to be able to lead in the outdoors, also teaching them the skills to be able to work with individuals with disabilities, and then also looking at substance abuse counseling skills and how to work with that population as well. So this program ideally is going to develop a student into a well-rounded individual that can work in any of these sorts of fields in the outdoors. So of course, if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. So beyond the therapeutic fields in the outdoors, there are more educational fields too. So things like being a high school PE teacher. There are many high schools now that are utilizing outdoor education as a core part of their physical education program. And so whether that is, here in Northern Illinois at one of these local schools that offers it, some of these schools have indoor climbing walls, indoor climbing facilities. They have their own kayaking programs, which are all amazing, and they all operate under this outdoor ed PE program. So maybe again, you are interested in education, but you really like seeing people interact with the outdoors. Well, you can do so on the education side in high schools, working for an outdoor ed PE program. Another option is to do it at the college level, like what I'm doing now. At colleges, there's really two different routes you can take. There's the educational route, which is what I do. So I teach the next generation of students who want to be leaders in the outdoors. But there's also the co-curricular side, or the collegiate outdoor recreation programs. So those are programs with opportunities to get into the outdoors and to just experience it without necessarily getting an education. Both of these are offered at the collegiate level. And again, if you're really interested in that experiential side, maybe working at a college outdoor ed program or outdoor rec program might be the route you would want to go. One of the most common jobs that I hear of as an advisor for outdoor recreation students is, I want to be a park ranger. Well, that's great. There's a lot of opportunities out there for being park rangers. However, when people say they want to be a park ranger, they don't necessarily understand exactly what that means. So in terms of being a park ranger, there's really three main routes that people will take. One is the law enforcement side of being a park ranger. So to do that, you typically get a degree in outdoor recreation or criminal justice, and then you still go through the equivalent of a police academy to become the law enforcement side of being a park ranger. So that's one route. The other routes, which are probably more common, one is the educational side of being a park ranger. Again, if you've ever been to a national park or even a state park, you've probably seen rangers that are taking groups of people around teaching them about the outdoors. This is that interpretive guiding side of being a park ranger. So you can be on the educational side of being a park ranger. And then the third side is the conservation side. And so these are park rangers who work in large, expansive national parks or national forest areas, and their job and goal is to protect the natural environment. So they will do lots of work on trail maintenance and site rehabilitation, and work a lot with the natural spaces, very much hands-on. Normally they're leading groups of people to do that, volunteer groups or groups like the Student Conservation Association or other organizations like that. But as a ranger, their job is to work on the conservation side of the outdoors. So just because you say you want to be a park ranger, that's great, but what area of being a park ranger might you really want to go into? So these are, again, all options for you. One of the last ones I wanted to cover is just going to camp. So think about when you were growing up. How many of you actually went to some sort of camp? Now that could have been an educational camp, could have been a faith-based camp, could have been a youth club camp, a scouting camp, anything like that. But those camps still run outdoor programming. So maybe you loved that camp lifestyle. Well, there are people who run those camps, full-time camp directors, camp programmers, camp staff. So yes, it can be a summer job too, just as a camp counselor. But on the professional end, there are people who are running these camps full-time and year-round. So if you love the outdoors and you love that camp lifestyle, that could also be a potential route for you in terms of a full-time career. Now, all of those jobs kind of had a very obvious connection to the outdoors. But what about individuals who are interested in more math or science? Well, that's great because we need those people too working in the outdoors. Think about all of that high-end outdoor equipment, the newest kayak, the newest backpack, the newest camp stove, all of those things. Well, someone has to design them. Someone has to not only design them, but also test them. So if you're somebody who's interested in going into more of the computer-aided design or engineering sort of fields, great. That's still an opportunity to be able to work in the outdoor industry. Many of the high-end outdoor companies, they hire on engineers to design their next generation of products and then also to test them. So if you're interested in working in the outdoors, but you really are more interested in kind of the science and computer sides of things, great. There's still an opportunity for you to work in the outdoors. So with all of that, what should be the takeaway? Well, if you're somebody who loves being outside, if you're somebody who really enjoys working with people, if you're somebody who wants to see differences made in people's lives by showing them new experiences and showing them new things and helping them experience new places, well, working in outdoor recreation might be the route you want to take. There's lots of opportunities out here. Again, I've just highlighted a few of them. There's hundreds and hundreds more jobs that exist out there. But what I want you to take away really is that it's not just being outside. Being outside is great, but a career in outdoor recreation really is about changing people's lives through the use of the outdoors. Whether that's helping somebody overcome an addiction, whether it's helping somebody experience something for the first time that they've never been able to before, whether that's designing some new generation of product, or whether that's helping a child experience the outdoors for the very first time at camp. These are all opportunities that exist for people who are interested in working outdoors. Of course, if you ever have any questions and you want more information about these, you're more than welcome to contact me. Again, my name is Jerome Gabriel. I'm a faculty member at the University of St. Francis in Joliet, Illinois, in the Recreation and Sport Management Department. So I look forward to being able to talk with more of you soon, and I hope you all have a great day.